My wife and I have been in Japan for 34 years. We first came in 1990, and we came originally as teaching English to help the church reach the community and to build relationships. And then we got involved as we matured in the ministry. We got involved in discipleship, and I got involved in preaching and teaching. And so we've been involved in a number of different church plants along the way, serving for my role as a church planting assistant. And my background is actually in art and design. So I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts in illustration from Rhode Island School of Design. And backing up before we went to Japan, I worked in advertising, eventually worked up to be an art director, but felt the call of God on my life then to go to a country where there were not many churches, because God grew my heart for church planting through being involved in a church plant in America, in South Carolina. And through that experience, understanding that, okay, all the things that we've done here, could we do it in a country where there were very few churches? And of course contextualize it, and God enabled us to make that switch. And so we've been very excited about seeing the church grow through our time in Japan. And that's kind of my background up to this point. The interesting part of it is that my undergrad in art took a backstage. It kind of took a back seat. And I would practice that through the things that the church needed, such as like flyers or promotion, different kinds of advertising, which was part of what I had done earlier. But my wife began to see something in me that was very telling. A wife knows me better than I know myself, and she said, Peter, you should be doing more with your art. And I said to her, I just don't understand the role that art can play in direct ministry. I can see it as a support, to communication and design, but I really didn't understand how art could go and directly engage the culture, directly engage the people. And God's so faithful. He enabled me to see that in action, and I actually had to leave Japan to see it. Went to India and became part of a art residency where we were working among the poor in India. And we were a bunch of artists who gathered together, both Christian and non-Christian. So part of the residency was for us to be able to live in community and to share our faith through our practice, share our faith through our perspectives on life and on beauty and on how we approached, the opportunities that we see before us creatively. And through that experience, I really saw art directly impacting the culture who we were working with. And I was amazed because I'd never seen that before. So when I came back to Japan, I thought, okay, I've seen it impact this very poor neighborhood in India who needed running water, ID cards, and education. I'm like, come back to Japan. Well, Japan doesn't need running water, they don't need education, they don't need ID cards. So what are these unique needs that are existing in Japanese culture that I could take that experience and use art to focus and attention on that and to engage the culture, engage the community through art, through beauty, so we could have dialogue, to have a platform and a bridge to begin to talk about these things. And as I mentioned, Japan is a very affluent country. So what were the needs in Japan? It was transparency, it was vulnerability, it was to be able to feel loved. How do you feel loved? Very performance-based society, shame, guilt culture. And so we worked very hard as a team to develop an exhibition that we held outside the church, downtown in the city center. and it dealt with a bunch of umbrellas. We put 100 umbrellas in this room with scripture on the walls and pictures on the walls, and we were able to engage those who came on the subjects of vulnerability, of openness, on how do you enable to be, in a sense that it's called unfolding. How can you unfold your life in such a way that people can see the real you and understand who you really are? Because most people in Japan are afraid if people really knew who I was, would they still love me? Would they still care? And so this direct application of art in a community setting provided a bridge and a platform to engage in an area that was safe for them to be open and safe for them to share their feelings, safe for them to share their hurts and their struggles. And I remember one woman in particular, she looked at an umbrella that we had. All these umbrellas were in different conditions. One was completely broken. And she said, "That's my life." And I said, tell me more, help me understand what's going on. Now, I had just met her, but art was able to open up that stream of relationship to where she could share a very deep hurt and we could discuss it. And so from that experience, we began to think, okay, how can we move on that? God has shown us that this is a valuable way to reach into society, to reach into the culture where normally this demographic are not really attracted to the traditional forms of evangelism that the church is involved in. Not that those are bad. Cooking classes, craft classes, English classes, they're all great, and we've done them. But there's a segment that won't really come into the church that way. And as we decided to go out from the church and to start a studio and to start a gallery, we found we could create a place to build and to create, which was the studio, and then we could find a place to actually exhibit and invite people into these spaces. And what they became were what's being talked about now as the third place. It's the third place that people look for. The first place is your work, second place is your home. Well, what is that third place in your life where you want to go, where you feel a sense of belonging, you feel a sense of camaraderie? And this gallery and this studio have become the third place for many people because they feel a sense of belonging